So, a warm welcome to you, Saurabh. And I'll just do a very short introduction. This is Thoughtful Thursdays, which is over 100 episodes and more. And it started off with sharing conversations, wanting to spark thoughts in people's mind and interesting conversations. What is interesting today is Thoughtful Thursday is launching its first chat show, a segment that invites industry leaders from all walks of life, marketing, branding, insights, and also hoping that we could get people from cognitive sciences, neuroscience, behavioral economics, all of which adds a perspective to our life and sets us thinking. Let me do a short introduction about you, Saurabh. Saurabh actually needs no introduction, but he is the marketing head at Britannia. He heads the dairy business, but he has 2 decades of experience at Mondelez and Diageo. But I would like to give a personal introduction, which I feel really wowed me when I was talking to him, is his infectious enthusiasm and his zeal for partnership and collaboration, which actually floored me. And I was happy that he's going to be my first guest on Thoughtful Thursdays, my first segment, my first chat show. And what better auspicious day than the eve of Dashera. So warm welcome to you, Saurabh.
Thank you so much, Priya, for the lovely introduction. And it's interesting that you mentioned 100 episodes because, I just put up my 100th post on LinkedIn just last week. So there has to be more than a coincidence.
Yes. And that's called a high-five moment.
Totally. And yes, I have been, in fact, heading marketing for the Britannia's dairy portfolio, though I've had a lovely experience across my previous leagues as well with Mondelez and Diageo. And, I had once done this book called The Strength Finder, and which tells you a little bit about yourself. And what I sort of realized is that at my core, I'm essentially a connector. I love making these, large relationships with a lot of people and, sort of connecting the dots, who can help who. And, literally when I think of a problem at work, the first thing which I think about is not what the solution could be, but who can help me find the solution. And hence, I always believe the answer lies in finding the right people to work with rather than trying to come up with the right concept. So I think, yes, that does.
So brilliant. I think, and I think that I always say that's a kindred spirit.
Right.
Yeah, the kindred spirit to do that. And we have a common friend as well, Jamina, who also believes in the same philosophy. And I think it is like-minded people coming together, which becomes very, very important. So as I would say, let's get this show started. Yeah.
Great.
So sort of, I want to ask you that what are the 3 big trends and insights that you're picking up on the consumer front that you have noticed? And these are trends that are going to stay. So that's my first question for you.
Great. So, and maybe I'll just like to, kick off this conversation with regards to, what my observations for marketing as a whole has been through the pandemic, right? And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that, times change. The only thing that one should not do is to stop talking with the consumer. And, any brand which has decided to speak in a manner that is, sensitive but relevant has really made the most of this time. And hence, for one important trend is, engagement, no matter how tough the times are. What consumers really look forward to in today's times is brands which sort of, reach out to them and sort of communicate to them on a one-on-one basis. So that's something that has been quite interesting for me. The second such trend that I've been seeing really rising in today's times is this whole, fusion of food, technology, and health. I have actually in recent times got a large number of friends who have started their own startups, and it used to be in this healthy food space enabled by technology. And this particular space of health and technology, one side is food, which is your cult fits, eat fits of the world, but also cosmetics, how a Mama Earth and a Wow Cosmetics have really picked up these things that there are, long lost remedies like an apple cider vinegar and ashwagandha or, glona, tulsi extracts or onion extracts that people are sort of looking on to. So I think that is something which is something which I'm finding very powerful in today's times. And the third thing that I feel that is, really interesting about today's times is about reaching out to the consumer in a far more connected manner. For some industries, it is personalization. For others, it is about, curating specific recipes and specific benefits, right? Essentially, the consumer today feels more than any other time before. He wants to make a personal connection with brands, either attitudinally or through the right, tailored services. So for me, these are the three things which I feel are really relevant and growing. Of course, enabled through technology and through the new services that have sort of come about. But yeah, it's indeed a time of transition, and probably we have covered a decade of movement in probably the last 18 months.
This is fantastic. So 3 points. One is engagement and relationship. The other one is personalization, which you just spoke about. And the whole trend towards our going back to our roots and healthiness. And I want to touch on all these three very briefly. Let's talk about personalization, and that is something that I've also been noticing. And there's a difference between customization and personalization. If you just want to kind of talk briefly about that, and I think the semantics are different.
Right. Yeah. Customization is, when you offer a plethora of benefits and you can say that, whatever is the size, I have got a fit for it, right? Personalization is a little more emotional. It is about saying that I deeply understand where you are coming from. If there is something in your culture, tradition, ritual, behavior, something which enables me to form a connection beyond just an ordinary brand. So that's where this whole trend of personalization is coming in, and it's leading to a large number of innovations in today's times, where the feeling that it evokes is that this particular offer is in some way crafted specifically for me.
Is it an example?
One example, not maybe a very straightforward one, but yeah, somewhere there is, I really enjoy the new products which Smore has come up with. So if you were to a Smore's chocolate parlor, right? Now you will realize that Smore feels like a very exotic, maybe international chain. The qualities of offerings are really gorgeous to look at. I mean, they're a feast for the eyes as well as for your palate. But if you look at the way they've crafted their bars, everything from an ancient Indian remedies of ashwagandha and Niloy, mixed with red cocoa chocolates. So there's a perfect fusion of East and West. And somewhere the feeling that one gets is that this is just not another brand. This is a perfect curated set of recipes. Probably been made by a master blender or a chef, whipped it up in a kitchen, and they decided to bring it out to everybody else.
It's a very good example, and it's also my favorite because I've been following the brand on LinkedIn, and in fact, I gifted Smore to my mother-in-law, and the chocolates were different. The chocolates were actually very international. You could also say international in terms of the taste and the quality. So fantastic example there. And you pointed out something, because I also follow the food industry. It's also something that I'm passionate about and a foodie at heart. And I'm noticing a lot of going back to health, our ancient culture, rootedness. What has tipped that? It cannot be only the pandemic. Was there something before that you have picked up?
This is, I think, the first time that this as an insight hit me in some shape or form was almost a decade back. So about a decade back, when I was the brand manager for Gems, I realized then that Kinder Joy had really made large waves in the market. And went out there and decided to meet consumers. When we met consumers, we realized that something has significantly changed. It was a time when Cadbury's would have offerings, 70% of our business was 5 and 10 rupee SKUs. And here rupee SKU is doing so well, right? And there we realized that the consumer mindset, from what my mom's mindset was, say 30 years back, to my wife's mindset 10 years back, how that has evolved, right? So when we were young, anything from home was good, anything which is from outside was considered bad, because we could afford it. Right, as affordability came up and time became more scarce, suddenly brands became good, and suddenly it was the vada pav and the pani puri that became unhygienic. So how the consumer's mindset towards food and the general appreciation of health and hygiene, how it changed over the last few decades is really interesting to observe. We from a time where, like I said, only home cooked food was good. Then we reached a time when brands were good. Then we reached a time where suddenly, you moved from the colas to the juices. And then people felt, oh, juices have sugar, so dairy drinks sort of came up. Today you have, all these trends of sunflower extracts, flax seeds. And, after a while, the consumer will get tired and say, oh, God, but what is all this, And I think the only thing that, finally works with the consumer is a sense of authenticity.
Correct.
Authenticity finally is about what is it that I've probably grown up with, and I think that's where this whole resurgence of ancient Indian wisdom, grandmom's recipe. I think that's where it's all coming from. Where there is a sense of tiredness of saying that chia seeds and flax seeds are great, but I really have no clue what they are.
I was just going to say that in my right mind, I've never understood how to have them, because it all looks exciting, right? But when you actually start incorporating that in your real life, because we are all at home, normal people. And it is so difficult to change your oil. It is so difficult to change your salt. Forget having flax seeds and chia seeds, right? And I'm glad you brought up the point, because I think there is a difference between a trend and a fad.
Absolutely.
And at the end of it, we are here if one has to make a brand or one has to create a product, it has to match with the need the consumer has.
Absolutely.
And fulfill that. Yeah. So brilliant. And you spoke about engagement today. No, I think we are at the cusp where engagement and relationships are something that all brands vie for. Is there an example over there which has caught your attention, which says that, okay, it's moving in the right direction? Is that something that caught your attention on the engagement and relationship front?
It's a great question. And I think it's, again, a topic that I'm fairly passionate about. So, back in the day, it was 2009, where I had an opportunity to be a part of the team that actually started the social media journey for Cadbury's. So it was around 2009 that I did this workshop with our media guys, a friend called Vivek, who essentially had his own shop for, Facebook sites. And in 6 months' time, we took Cadbury Celebrations from 0 fans. I mean, we were one of the first brands to come on Facebook to 1 million fans. And that, there is a change among us. At that point in time, I used to see this site called Social Bakers. And I was very passionate about the fact that Cadbury Celebrations are among the top 5 sites in all of India in terms of fans and social media. So I had this special connection with social, very long back. And then I realized that, over the next 10 years, you had YouTube and Facebook teaching marketers that, guys, your ads don't work on social or on YouTube. You need to make maybe 6-seconders. You need to make stuff that works on mute, put some, text out there. And I think a decade from that time, the next social revolution is again upon us, where now a Spotify and a Ghana are teaching us that, we are not a regular radio channel that will need those crass edits blaring over traffic. You need something which is intimate, different. We can actually talk to the consumer in his ear, right? So I think how we relate to the consumer through technology has, massively changed over the last so many. And again, I believe there is advertising where you sort of give your message, and then there is engagement where you figure out your way of participating in the consumer's conversation.
Yeah.
And, all this while, moment marketing was always there, but it was never really so large in India because, we are a country of people who can't even agree on the same name for any festival that we sort of work with, right? Baisakhi, Pongal, which one is it?
I love it.
But you really had when we were all under shutdown for the first time, all of the countries speaking the same language.
Yes.
The first time talking vocal for local again, talking about the same issues. And suddenly you realize that the Super Bowl phenomenon of the US can finally come to India. Hence, what has been happening is that clients have been demanding competencies from the agencies. Clients have been creating new structures, probably putting social media professionals in-house, because this butterfly called movement marketing can only be captured by the agile. If you have standard 6 rounds of iteration, it's not going to work out, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
you need to not only pick up those trends, you need to be able to respond as soon as possible, and then you need to respond in a manner that brings back to your brand proposition. I mean, if you just respond in a fun manner, didn't do anything for your brand, what did it really give you? And
it's almost knee-jerk, right? Then it's just making, and I think the consumer can see that. I think it's evident when you just do something because you're latching onto the moment, but you're not tying it with your brand. And I think really damages the brand rather than really enhancing the relationship with the brand in today's time, I feel.
Absolutely. But I think these are a competency that has to be built. And I think this is a time that's not ever going to go back. And, as we go forward, the consumer will only demand more and more of these services. So I think it's time for us to, buck up and build those competencies.
Correct. Absolutely. So my second question for you, and I think this is interesting, is that, you love this profession. I can see it when you talk about it, the passion in which you talk about it. What are those moments that, makes you fall deeply in love with it again and again?
Great. I think that's a great question. And you're right. I am absolutely in love with my profession. So I just love marketing and brand management. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. So there have been these, several times over the last few years where there has been this very interesting consumer insight that has hit me and has made me realize that, what a joy it is to be working on in this field. One of my proudest achievements is Cadbury Celebrations, where I played a pivotal role in this campaign. Is Diwali aap kise khush karenge? And, I came onto this brand Celebrations where the first question my managing director greeted me with was, why shouldn't we shut down this brand? Because not been making money for the last 15 years and it's not been growing for the last 4 either. So we decided to say that, we need to do something different now. So let's go there and understand consumers. So we went to Bareilly, Rajkot, all kind of towns. Realized there's this huge difference between how we live our life in a Bombay, Delhi, where we truly don't know our neighbors and we don't really care. And to the small towns where that sort of, joy and relationship is still very much alive. So, I had this goosebump moment where I had this consumer saying that me and my landlord, where I've been staying for the last 7 years, have been sending our sons to schools together for the last 7 years. Nobody in school knows that they're not brothers. And that kind of a love is not there in our households, right? And we realize that there is something that we are missing, and there's an opportunity of saying that at least in Diwali, can we truly make this a happiness vacation? Can we provide this one opportunity where you will reach out to your, long lost school teacher, you will, try to reach out to your neighbors, you will maybe gift a box of celebrations to the pizza delivery guy working on a Diwali night. And I think we hit on something which is gold dust. And the feeling that you had is, I'm not just selling my brand, I'm maybe changing popular culture in some shape or form. So I think that's one time that I really felt that, boy, I'm getting a chance to work with something really brilliant here.
So may I add, it's also my favorite brand because I worked on Cadbury Celebrations.
Oh, lovely.
And I think it was it's such a humbling experience because we are in Bombay, right? And when you go to smaller places, you realize that gifting is so different. And the lens of gifting has so many dimensions.
Absolutely.
And I'm from South, and and the notion of gifting is so different for us.
Correct.
Right? And added to it the whole urban nonsense that I've been brought up with. And and I said, oh my God, I've got this brilliant opportunity to Cadbury Celebrations to understand India. And which you said, and I want to say, Saurabh, what made you passionate, this moment which you said that I traveled to Bareilly, I traveled to this place. I want all my younger researchers and even in my team to hear this out, that you went there and you spent time listening to the consumer. You're not
Absolutely.
an armchair marketing person. You're not an
Absolutely.
armchair branding person. And I think that makes a world of difference. And I just wanted to point that out. Yeah.
Thank you
It's
so
such a
much.
beautiful
No,
example.
I completely agree with you. That's the only way to really do kick-ass marketing work.
Yes. And give me one more example that makes you fall in love. One more.
Sure. So let me take a very different example now, right from the rural to maybe uber luxury to an extent. So I was working with Diageo as the innovation head premium luxury spirits about 4 years back. And we really were trying to crack what are the innovation possibilities in India, because in our market, it's the same category. It's not a category which you can easily go out there and communicate. Otherwise, you typically think of an innovation, you do some consumer campaign, a lot of right? So we're trying to understand what is the consumer psychology here. How and why does the consumer buy Scotch? What sets it apart? And what are those levers that we can actually use? And I was sitting in this bar in the airport, and I was just looking at those Johnny Walker bottles sitting on the shelf on the side,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Now, what you'll find really amazing if you look at those Johnny Walker bottles is that they are like a ladder. There is the red label, which is the smallest, going on to the black label, green label, blue label. Blue label is the largest bottle out there. And I was just curious about saying that how much of alcohol do they contain, right? How much of literage is it, right? And they were all either 750 ml or 1 liter. Same liquid, same amount, different bottles. What's going on out there? And I realized it's just about the deposition of glass. So when you and believe you me, alcohol is a very different category in the sense that it has got zero functional benefit. Finally, it's a bottle of ethanol, right? C2H5O. That's all there is. And you can price it anyway from $300 to $1 million, right?
It's the best way to self-escapism, right?
Correct. So I realized then, how is it that that it's all about psychology? Johnny Walker brand, that is the quintessential man-making journey. It essentially is a rite to passage. It tells you number 18, now you're 21, you're not 25, now you're 40, 60. I mean, every big career is there. And how do they bring it to life? By these simple cues of, a handmade label, a little bit of extra bottle, glass position. And this simple insight led to this project called Projectarian, which is actually a global but doing extremely well in India right now, where they have launched scotches in hip flasks. So plastic simple hip flask is there in the regular alcohol market. I love the way the packaging is. Of course, it was a global project, but the insight was very simple. The simple insight was just how you dress up a bottle of alcohol can make all the difference in how it is perceived and what is the emotional benefit it gives back to a consumer.
Absolutely. Why do we go? It is a fantastic thing when you go to Scotland and Isle of Skye.
Right.
It's all the marketing, right? And when you look at the barrels and you look at you sit over there and you sip the wine or you sip the whiskey. It's all of that.
Right.
And I think what you said is brilliant, because that makes a huge world of perception difference. And one of the examples that I had is, like, as you said, I was sitting at the bar and observing what is happening. It was one of my international flights. And I said, I have a lot of time to kill. So I went to the duty-free shop and I saw the monkey shoulder brand, which I'd never ever seen before. And I picked it up because I thought the way it was, the story and how it was marketed, and such a brilliant way. There was
it's actually one of my favorite blends as well. I just love those metallic monkeys on the neck, right? It's absolutely gorgeous.
And as a sales guy, like our typical Indian thing, na, kuch naya dikhao.
True.
I said I have to take back something different, right? From what I know.
I agree.
And then at that moment, I said, this is it. I love this. There must be a story to it. And these monkeys, and I've never seen that. And I think that's when you fall in love with your craft and your profession that you're talking about. So brilliant, two brilliant examples. Now, going to my third question for you. Gaurav, Saurabh, it is something to do with what we are currently going through, right? Work and culture.
Right.
I think we are at a cusp where so much is changing, so much is evolving. And you, as a leader, I would like to know your views on what are the three things that you're picking up? Because we both have a team and there are a
Right.
lot of young people out there. So, what are the three things that you're picking up or a message that you want to leave? So that,
Sure.
while we're evolving, how do we look at all of this that's going to go ahead of us as well?
Right. So I think a lot has, really changed over the last year, right? And while we have all embraced technology, and I know it feels like a great thing, right? I mean, over the last year and a half, I've now participated in so many discussions over a Zoom call I could never have imagined doing it earlier, right?
My God. We should laugh at this.
Totally,
Okay.
totally.
Yeah.
But then, but I realized that there were a lot of, people uh, generally having a difficult time. Like, one of the things that I observed is how difficult it was suddenly to close positions. There were people doing 75 interviews, right? And not having to finally close it. And I was just trying to observe what's really going on here? Why is this difficulty in, closing positions? And that's when I realized that there is how much of trust that we evoke, right, is communicated through body language. And
Yes.
how much of that body language we lose over a screen,
Mm.
right? And we make it even worse for ourselves because most of the meetings we do the videos off. So if
Yes.
you don't have even a video for comfort, you don't have the eyes of the person that you're going to be looking into, how difficult it is to establish a rapport of trust, right?
Mm.
And job interviews is an extreme example, but even simple things like closing decisions,
Yes.
trying to land, because see, more often than not, when we as leaders we take decisions after we gauge that the person proposing the decision to us is now fully convinced. That person has done all the due diligence.
Mm.
It's not about the data and the numbers. It's about the
Yes.
trust that you feel at the moment, saying that that person is put in the best, right? And we realize that there is so much of a handicap that all of culture has developed because of the fact that we are operating over screens and that body language is missing, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
hence I would proactively go out there, try to make an example by putting on a video myself, trying to make other people comfortable, saying that this is the right thing to do. And
Mm.
and also explain them that this is why it is for, that we have to get that human touch back in our discussions, in our meetings, right?
Yes.
The second thing that I realized is, and I mentioned it somewhere recently, that I think all my work happens over coffee breaks. It's not about
I
the
love
meeting,
it. Me too.
right? It's all about, building the rapport. And over the last year and a half, especially people who have joined new workplaces, they have not had the time to invest in those connections and those relationships. And I actually push my direct reports saying that, have you built the relationship? I mean, there's a girl on the legal floor.
Mm.
Why don't you go out there and talk to her? Understand
Absolutely.
what her life like, because it's not about doing meetings and follow-up mails. It's about actually establishing real connections with
Mm.
people.
Mm.
That's how work gets done. That's how you come together and chase a common agenda. And hence, when it comes to people that I've been working with, I think bringing back the human and human connections is something that I've been trying to push everybody to do and try to do it myself.
Actually, so important. And, these, we started calling it the water cooler conversations.
Right,
And very early on at Ormax, we said we got to open office when the coast is clear.
right,
And I said, the purpose of coming to office is not again setting up meetings where you are looking at
right,
your screen, but actually having
correct,
discussions. So you come to office to have discussions, but if you don't have, you have many meetings which require you to have a Zoom meeting, then stay at home. And it made life so simple. And I think that's very, very,
right,
very important. And I said, okay, we normally do shorter lunch breaks. We'll do a little longer. So we spend time talking and discussing.
correct.
And so earlier it was small talk that I was talking when I was talking on other forums. And now I've introduced a new word called chit chat.
Nice.
And I
Yeah,
think we're losing those things that we used to say or do, right, Saurabh?
yeah, right. Yeah. In fact, I had put out a post recently where I was just trying to think that I think we over emphasize or give far more importance to decisions
Mm,
and not as much to discussions. I think it's time to bring back the joy of discussions again,
yes.
rather than only decisions.
Yeah, and teaching the younger guys that every meeting is not a acrimonious thing, right? It is about a
Correct.
discussion. It is a point of view. Come with a question. Simple,
Absolutely.
stupid, nonsensical, whatever. But if you don't have that, then you're never ever
Right.
going to develop the right faculties of critical thinking that you need later on. Yeah. And I'm
Absolutely.
glad you pointed that out. And that's always been on my mind as well. Yeah.
So why don't you tell me as well, how has the last 18 months been for you? I mean, where do you feel that you have personally grown the most and enabled other people's growth?
So a fantastic question. First, when people said there is a pandemic and we have to sit at home, so we said you have the gift of time.
Right.
You had 3 months, and I did. For me, it was not only a gift of time for myself, but it was a. I see Ormax as my extended family. I've
Right.
been with Ormax for 27 years, literally grown up
Wow.
with Ormax, and I did two things which I think helped me change my perspective. One is what I wanted to do was in the whole mental health space. I have a friend, Niana, who handles safe space and mental health. I actually did an intervention program. Is if somebody is undergoing a mental health issue or suicide,
Oh,
how do you intervene? And I
right.
always wanted to do the workshop, and I was a little afraid that my over imaginative mind nahi karna hai. And I was afraid. I was fearful. And I let out my vulnerability and said, I didn't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. I have this chance now. And I did the 3 hour workshop, and it changed my attitude, my sensitivity, my outlook towards that.
Wow.
So that was one. The second thing that I did, which I thought would enhance my team, and I got my psychoanalyst friend. She's not a friend, she's actually a professional, Nuzat. I said, this is the time that we have. We wanted to do it before the pandemic, but I said, now we have the time to do these 1.5, 2 hour sessions. We don't have to rush anywhere. So take us to different emotions. What does
Wow.
anger really mean? What does envy really mean? What is lust? What is
Wow.
guilt? And those were the two important moments. And I think those will be really, really helpful for the times to come. And the
Lovely.
third thing was I let my guard down. I said, I do watch Netflix.
Right.
And I did watch a lot of content, which I didn't get a chance earlier. And I said, if I have the privilege to work from home, it's all right to take a half an hour nap.
Right.
It's all right to pace your life. And I realized that we could all do with a bit of less rush.
Yeah.
We can learn from this. And our connectedness, and you spoke about connectedness right at the beginning. I
Right.
realized our connectedness with nature, which has been
Right.
destroyed, was a wonderful opportunity that I was able to connect with.
Right.
And yeah, and I think that's been my fantastic journey. And I think the
Nice.
team at Ormax and all of us, I think, have grown through this.
Nice. 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 So, as you have grown and changed, there would have been a lot of, these changes in, your friend circle with people taking on
Yes.
startups, by a lot of companies pivoting and doing things differently.
Yeah.
What is it that, you have observed in the world of, say, marketing and business over the last, say, a few months that you find intriguing? And, what do you think is driving this change?
So I'll give you an example of the work that we did for Cardeco. Yeah.
Right.
And, before the pandemic, we did a big piece of work, okay, with
Right.
the whole strategy and inciting. The pandemic happened. So
Right.
Cardeco's positioning earlier was chalao apni. Yeah. Sabki suno, chalao apni. But once
Right.
the pandemic hits, that won't do, right? It's so
Yeah.
individualistic. It is not
Correct.
even in the right zone, as I would say. And I
Right.
remember that they immediately pivoted to Zindagi Ki Gaadi Chalao.
Oh,
Move.
nice.
And they did some brilliant work. I think you should check up, I'll do a formal connect even with Gaurav. They said they got Vineet Panchi, who is a very great, very eloquent, right? ये stories जो हमारी life में होती है, and he started sharing
Right.
stories. And that was hope, inspiration on the times when everything was so bleak around you, correct?
Right.
And what a way to share those stories, right? You can
Nice.
tom about what your brand is, or just get someone very nice to talk about stories, poetry.
Right.
And everything around you is so like falling apart, right? And how to
True.
build grit and attitude. And I thought that was a good example of how a brand could have changed.
Right. Very nice. Yeah, lovely. No, I think that is something that has been really fascinating for me, where brands have been able to smartly pivot because their previous proposition just didn't seem relevant during that time.
Yes.
And I think that needs a lot of gall and confidence to do that. We are often stuck in this phase of indecision, saying that my previous ad is not relevant. I don't have the production values to create the new one. So what am I going to do?
And scary
Yeah.
because abhi kya karna hai? It's that
Correct.
feeling that, and I think this, just sitting down and reflecting what is the need of the hour, what does the consumer really need, and is what the consumer is going through.
Right.
And you touched
Absolutely.
on that, right?
Absolutely.
That made the difference. And we also did, and it was, when I say scary, remember this whole Zoom and online and, all the group discussions and interactions in our work changed over there. I spent 20 days, Saurabh, actually thinking about how to train my team.
Oh, wow. Okay.
How to build that rapport and trust with an individual. And our work is based on that, right? Our work is based on that. And earlier we would form groups and we would be there. But today, in the absence of that, how do we do that?
Yeah, I agree. That's probably been the most challenging.
And again, there was a big campaign that they were going to roll out in November. We did the groups, and we added the whole facial coding, and we never looked back. I think what the pandemic has really taught us, Saurabh, is that we can withstand big forces that will come.
Absolutely. True. But, I think there's this whole openness to be, willing to pivot and change. I think that's really crucial. As long as one is open to that, ideas sort of blossom and we get the right stuff to do.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is a good way to end this Thoughtful Thursday chat show, where Saurabh, I think we've all grown through this process.
Absolutely. Great. Yeah.
Thank you. And this was the most brilliant session. And on the eve of Dussehra, the auspicious moment, we're kicking off something brilliant at Ormax.
Great. Absolutely great, Priya. Absolutely a lovely conversation. I'm looking forward to more.
Yes. And we will stay in touch.